of a primal disconnection, allowing self, subjectivity and personhood to develop, he decides to remove his own and thus complete a vaporisation de moi. But will the missing navel be an absent god, or a habitant flaneur sitting in a bistro of some northern Manitoban forest? There are no periods of decline, and decline is required for his recovery. He recalls how the form of an object is a diagram of forces, at which point a small flaneur flits by. The Cartesian mind grid coordinates work to monopolize multiplicities and present them ontologically as a coherent ego. Voila, the birth of the thinking subject. But person A stopped thinking already, and springtime ends in the deposition of what is said. His face recedes into a history more valid than known, and is only recognizable by the intercession of a voice. But he is happy in his silence where he is, alone in a classical, natural night, opposed to fashion, in fear of the power and the erotic he thinks and therefore cannot know for sure. I'm going to read a suite now that... Actually, I'm not going to interrupt it by the discrete titles because it flows together. It will probably end up as one long work, and it's called Shadowland. What was it like to always dream of turnstiles moving up and down in the People's Republic of Diagonals? Sleep did it twice. And first time, the arrowroot connection came dislodged from its bratwurst overlay. The current fell to this contemporary plateau of pleasant temperature instead of the dense precipitates intended. The crowd coughs in bunches, smelling the cornucopia of a live octopus, the slight knock in a word in jazz. Melodious inside, melodious inside it, one wonders if the pantyhose is relevant, if the non-stick wok is a cultural appropriation, best kept silent by those strangers who take the if out of life. Perhaps it's best to slice Saturday in two, attach the first half onto Friday, the second to the ceiling of a house we've ignored until now. Its walls freshly painted in Xeroxed resumes so that a neat village can appear in a matter of moments with its own council, idiot and mayor. No one mentions magic in the tour guides. Now, if only we were as intelligent as that retired salesman next door, or the sailor from the phenomenology escapade, who always mows his lawn during other folks' disasters, then we could charter all the things that need to be chartered. The Statute of Liberty, the Stars and Stripes, the Declaration of Interdependence, currently housed as a unique copy in a president's back pocket. Those are the days, instantly prancing into precedence and then apologizing for the unpredictable hot flashes during nuptials we blamed on the placebo derivatives. Sunlight as when the neighbouring ants seem jealous and take their colony elsewhere. Every year you're left looking at your hands with their wraparound confidence and impeccable credentials. One even wears a suit and tie. This is not to complain about the cockroach, shy, demure, but still quoting passages of Henry James to the audience it imported for its own entertainment from cultural memory. And the trauma that shy neighbours bring to American Hiroshimas among immigrants, as far from me to complain about the formal piety of histrionics, the rough canvas shoving through this paint, shattering its representation, and miles from the spot we first arrived at, playing dominoes with Chaucer if he's still awake. But the dominoes complain, all the rookies leave boot camp for something more preliminary, while we return to communion with the dead to proofread in their shadowland. Funny how the dancing stops. Some shoot a pure version of venison, others fish for frogs' legs in a cookbook, just out of reach beside the incubator on the real meaning of arrival, when you read of arriving in a great translation from another language, such as Russian, no doubt. The word womb has a profound effect on French philosophers, when translated from the Greek via the Latin, but only the concept of womb in the word womb. Outside of that, it remains metaphysics and Marxism. brought out to intermittently engage the normal, stable, historical metrics of a kiss on the asshole of national critique. It's why I left philosophy, for the austerity of indoor husbandry. Not hydroponia exactly, but a sheltered garth where grows the nature of worlds in small townships, close to those forest settlements of the early 1900s named after surnames. And here, philosophy still tills the soil in the form of Baron George von Rottenberg in adult durability and hard-won domestic comforts, forgetting the meaning of meaning and the profounder question of the question. With pen in hand, one writes assertively that only national treasures are important. The golden hairpin worn by Martha Washington and left in Syracuse, New York, another in Rimouski. The Holy Grail still manages a pig farm with minimal foresight and utensils, and that way pays its debts to mythology, as the Shroud of Turin did in its campaign trails to a second presidency. How normal a communist farmer seems, idolized by his grandparents from Tbilisi, in the humiliating good press gained by the industrial salvage programs that made his destiny structurally linguistic and uncertain. The chickens chuckle in genuine intellectual detachment, and his relative and friend, the forest ranger known as Clem Jr., molds his attitude to politics according to the condition of his cleared-up shanty before Columbus Day proclaims the primacy of the right kind of aporia. Now, the Weekly Mail brings metaphor and system according to the logic of delivery and dispatch. A letter drops as a cow moves against the bleating of a different message, crumpled and content to have no name. Retinal derangement is the size of the contusion über alles, not that it matters to the third-party disagreement. How gloriously punditable it all seems now the sardine thumps along its mink-lined parentheses, putting language back in the fish tank where it belongs, acknowledging the gambit all boils down to a defense of poetry in all its gorgeous laughter. But ask any wasp about the Teflon officer in charge. Can he be bribed at security conventions, paid to look away, or does he object to unusual subjectivities like you? Those are awesome cleats, as autumn in evening daylight bringing foliage back from France, a living scroll in stasis under fresh outbursts from a recent